Alright, so these 4 steps are the biggest lie in history. It is not 4 easy steps, but I'll show you here in the review. So this review is more. This is a Christmas decoration from Sam's Club. It's Members Mark brand. It's a 6-foot pre-lit LED pop-up style snowman holding presents. So this is what it looks like. Here's the box it comes in. It goes for about 120 bucks on Sam's. I'll actually double check that. You'll hear my mouse clicking while I figure out the price. Yep, $114.98, and they're currently out of stock as I'm videoing this. So I apologize if you don't have access to it, but maybe they'll restock before Christmas. So basically the setup in the early parts are pretty simple. You just have to detach all the little fun stand pieces. There's a little circular base and 2 arm pieces. So you hit the base on there with a wing nut. Everything is set up with the metal pieces to be like A1 to A1, B1 to B1, basically telling you how to slot the thing in. It's pretty idiot proof. But there are some issues later on that are a little more difficult, and I'll explain those a little more as time goes on. And just be sure that when you open up the actual bag that contains the stakes, that you're very careful, because that's where the extra wing nuts are and the bolts. So if they slide out, just like you might have saw on the screen, you'll notice that they're hard to find in the grass. So just be careful when you dump those things out. There are wing nuts inside the little envelope, so don't let those get away from you. But as you can see here, A1 to A1, the wing nut goes in only one way, and it slides right in. I guess they call it a wing bolt. It's not really a wing nut. There is a wing nut later on though. So that gets tightened on there. That's A1 to A1. Then you got B1 to B1. Alright, and that B1 to B1 slot has a little bit of play in it, but I'm not sure if that's intended or if that's just an artifact from manufacturing. But B1 slot has a B1 peg. It goes right in there, and it attaches the same way that A1 attaches to A1. And this is basically the arms, or the sockets for the arms for your snowman. So there's only one way for them to go in, and once they're in there, you're good to go. Just make sure you got that little wing bolt tightened good and tight, and you'll be ready to go, and you should be sturdy for the actual snowman body to be put on. And this is how you do it. So I'm sorry if the angle's not great here, but the top hat base is basically like a wire frame. There's a peg attached to the very tippy top of the top hat that slides into the actual top of the pole here, and you kind of got to get a little friendly with the snowman to get in there and make sure it's all attached properly, but it should collapse flat, and you just make sure that there's a little hole in the wiring for the actual frame to go through, and then you have a little peg at the very top of the top hat that slides right into the slot created by the top of the pole. After that, make sure there aren't any kinks in it. One thing I will say, the gluing that's on this, that basically put together all the lights and things, it might just be hot glue. I'm not sure what they use for it, but it does sometimes stick. So you might have your snowman kind of looking like he's kind of hunched over, and that's because where the seams are, or where those gluing seams are, they might have stuck together. Go in there, you got to go inside the snowman, possibly like I did, and kind of pull apart the little pieces. It shouldn't rip off any lights. It's basically just where the hot glue touched 2 sides of the fabrics, and I couldn't get it apart. So you have to, sometimes you might have to go actually inside the snowman and peel apart sections if it got hot or if it was packaged. So that might be an issue upon storage of this thing. If it gets too hot, that glue that's connected there might stick together later on. So a little con there to the item itself. And there's my son who can't keep from touching it. And now we got to jump into getting the arms set up. So the arms are basically a peg system. So I'm doing a bad job showing you here because I realize you probably can't see it. But the arm slot goes right through here. And if you look inside, you'll see where the little arm slot goes, right in the little hole. You slide it in. This thing only goes on one way. The arms are connected by wires. So you have to wrap the wires around the back of the neck of the snowman, for lack of a better term. And they should slide right in. There will be no audible click. There will be no securing sound or feeling. It basically just uses gravity to hold in place. So it's a gravity and friction joint, basically. So it's not going to do much else. So don't expect any kind of audible snap or anything. It just slides right in to slide right out later. The process for the other arm is basically identical, and these things only go on one way, and you'll notice very quickly if you're trying to do it the wrong way, because the arms will be facing backwards away from the front of the snowman. So the arm should kind of cross in front of the snowman like if they're resting on his belly or trying to hold presents, because that's what this is going to look like when it's finally done. It's going to be holding a few presents. Alright, so now we got to get the collar on. This is basically the collar for the scarf. Make sure you get it correctly. If you do it upside down, it's not a huge deal, but you will have to take it back apart again. The peg holes for your scarf pieces should be facing upwards. This is where you sink the wing nut and bolt used together. This is the only part that actually does this. The rest all have self-contained bolts and nuts to them. So you just tighten the neck of the collar, get it good and tight, and then you can go ahead and from there move on to putting in the pegs for the scarf. And there we see my wife's grandmother looking on with great suspicion of what this thing was and how much it costs. And also, as with most things in this item, each of the holes are different, which means you can't mess this up by accident. They're different sizes completely. One's square, one's rectangular. Just slide the actual piece of the scarf in there. They will only go in one way that looks correct, and you can just look at the box to kind of get an idea what it's supposed to be like. Put one right there, and you put the other one right there like it's windswept kind of look to it, and there they go. All right, now for the presents. So the back of the presents has a wing bolt kind of put into the back. Undo it, make sure all the present bows are taken out of that bottom red present, because we were looking for them for a while only to realize, oh, they stored them in there. So make sure you pull those things out. Get the blue present attached to the red present loosely. Don't make it super tight, just doing enough to hold it together, because you have to put pegs in next. And those are in the front, and you don't want to make it so tight that you can't adjust it to get the pegs in. And that's basically how tight you want it to begin with. You're going to tighten it down completely after you get the pegs in on the front of the presents. And this is what the pegs look like. They're basically on the other side where the snowflakes are, and they have little slots. The blue present obviously goes on top of the red. There's the hole, there's the peg. There's one on each side. Just get them both in there, and it will be sturdy from that point on once you tighten that back wing bolt, and it'll be good to go. It tightens in place, and then you're basically finished with assembling the presents. Now, a common theme throughout this entire particular decoration is there are excess wires, because you want to have slacks so they don't snap on you, but you do need to tuck those away, and the entire thing has little tuck away points, holes basically in the fabric where you can tuck away wires and get them where they need to go, so they're not basically obtrusive or being seen and visible out in the open. So make sure you tuck them away, and you'll be good to go from there to attach your presents to your snowman, and make sure it's wired up properly. There's the wire that's going to get attached to the snowman in just a moment. Alright, so now we're attaching the presents themselves. This is the slot that's on the snowman's arm. It's right there. This is where you slide in the presents. And there's the present slot. I'm going to try to give you a good angle of that, but it's a little hard with the amount of sun that was out today. It was very difficult for me to see. There's the slot for the present. You just wrap it around. Bum, 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 bum. Try not to block the camera. And it slides right in. And then you do the same thing with the other side. Nothing really to it. Just make sure you don't wrap your wire in a way that makes it hard to deal with later on. But there is, once again, a strategic point in that little red present to wrap the wire. So once you get your wires all attached and hooked in place, you're going to go ahead and shove it into the little red present box, and it'll be set from there. The next step is just fastening down the bottom to make sure that everything is properly secured and that your snowman will not sit there and just bounce around in the wind. And that's what it kind of looks like. It hasn't been fully attached yet, but we'll get it there. All right, so right here, this is the base again. Then there's little loops down there, and attached to the fabric on the snowman, you just pull down those little, they're almost like carabiner loops. There's a carabiner loop option, which is kind of just a weak pressurized thing. There's also just general hooks. There's one set of each. One is for stakes, I believe, and one is for the hooks. We just staked down the actual metal itself. Maybe that's not how you're supposed to do it, but it worked. So there goes the hook. You can double attach to make sure it doesn't get loose, but if you're dealing with place with high wind, I would recommend not using this particular item because it'll get blown away. But as long as you're staked down, it should be able to handle most winter days, unless you're dealing with like crazy blizzards or something. But you just attach it to the base right here. It should not stretch heavily. It should basically just go right on. It shouldn't feel like you're about to rip the fabric or anything. So you should feel pretty secure and confident that you're not going to destroy your item when you're attaching it. If you do feel that way, it means you probably are pulling from one side. There are a total of 4 hooks and loops, one for each prong of the base. So if it does feel like you're putting too much pressure on it, you might have doubled up somewhere or forgotten one. Alright, and guys, that's all there is really to it. We're really happy with it for the price point, and Grandma paid for it, so that's why I'm super happy about it. But thank you, Nana. But basically, that's what it looks like. We got 2 other decorations there. Those were not purchased with it. They're just part of our little scene we made. And there it goes. That's how it looks during the daytime. Looks really cute, really fun. Doesn't look too tacky, but it looks fun. It's got 300 LED lights in it, and you'll be able to see that in just a moment. And they kind of twinkle in there. You got some twinkling lights. Looks very, very nice. And our son, who's 7, obviously thinks it's amazing and great, so that's part of the whole point of it. And thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the subscribe button and like the actual video itself, and have a great day, and Merry Christmas!